Greg, I don't know about you, but I've never been really big on anniversaries and birthdays and celebrating regular days on the date of the regular day, every year or something like that. Don't get me wrong. I'll celebrate these things because I know that they're important to, other people and stuff like that. But usually when it comes down to anniversaries and stuff like that, my wife remembers and I have, things scheduled in my calendar and reminders and stuff like that. So what about you?
Yeah, I mean, I remember my wife's birthday. I remember our anniversary.
Right.
Um, but other than that, I kind of rely on my wife
Yeah. Yeah.
to make
Same
things
here.
good.
Same here. So speaking of birthdays, my birthday is sandwiched in between my oldest son, my dad, and my youngest son, who is, a teenager now. So he's really consuming our lives. So it's funny, but most of the time I remember my
I love
birthday
that
is
word.
because,
My teenager is consuming my life, right?
yeah, yeah, he's pretty demanding at 13. He's pretty demanding. Um, More so than I remember being on my mom, but I could be wrong. But with my birthday being sandwiched in between all of theirs, I only remember my birthday sometimes as I'm either preparing for one of them or I'm reminded that their birthdays are coming up. And I'm like, oh, yeah, mine is too. Mine is like a week away from a couple of days after my dad and like a week away from my son. So we're all in September. So, which is funny because if my birthday had been in July or something like that, I probably would never remember. But I'm reminded because of all the other September birthdays. So I'm saying all of that because it was a surprise for me when Wendy was like, "Hey, you and Greg have been recording for a year. What are you guys planning for your 1 year anniversary or whatever?" And I'm like, "Hey, it has been a year already. Nothing. We didn't plan anything. I didn't even think we mentioned it back whatever episode was near that year or at that 1 year mark or something like that. Do you
Now
remember it?
it was pre WWDC. I think we tried to drop everything
Yep.
like right before WWDC last year, the trailer and all of that stuff. So no, I don't think we
Yep.
mentioned it. And we hit episode 52, which means, in theory, at one a week, even though we've missed a few weeks. We hit that a couple weeks ago. Nada.
Yep. 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 So we're just not big on celebrating ourselves, but Greg, congratulations on 1 year and congratulations on the 50th episode, which we didn't make a big deal about at all.
Yeah, we
So
have other things we're focused on.
yeah, yeah, and I think that's mostly me. I say regular days again. I don't want to offend anybody because I know everyone's birthday is important and everybody's anniversary is important, and we like to give a shout out here and there and our neighbors and stuff like that. Those things are supposed to be celebrated, but um, it's just not a big deal to me sometimes. But when I started outlining the episode, I realized that this was actually our second back to school episode, right? Since we've been recording for a year, it encompassed 2 school years already, two back to school years. So what I'm thinking, this will be our official annual back to school episode, right? So if you're a student, you're a parent, you're a teacher, you're a guardian, anyone that's faculty at the school, or if you just love back to school, then you're in the right place. So today we're going to be giving our back to school tip. This is our second annual back to school episode. So cue the music. So this is Gadgets for Families, the tech show where you get two tech grandpas talking tech. I'm your host, Jay Benjamin.
And I'm your host, Greg Cunningham. Thanks for joining us today. As Jason mentioned, second annual back to school episode.
Yep. It's gonna be an easy one. So anyone that listened to our earlier episodes, one, I want to apologize for those, but no, they were really good. They were really good, really long, even though we hadn't improved much on the time. But we used to really put an emphasis on packing information into those shows. Remember, Greg? They were really
Mm-hmm.
our techie episodes for a tech show. And I think that a lot of people who aren't into tech were, I'm not going to say turned off about it, but if you're not into technology, if you're not into the industry and hearing news and getting opinions on that, then you just don't listen. And that was the opinion of some of my friends, some of my close friends who subscribe to the show but don't listen weekly because it's about tech stuff. So we transition into talking about just having more easygoing tech conversations. Greg, you remember?
I do. When I was looking back to try and find our back to school episode, I hit that one episode that was first settings episode. So I think there were like 2 episodes where we went through every setting you can go through in the phone, which
Yep.
is now completely obsolete because it's all different. But
Yep.
yeah, there's a big difference between that and what we've been doing.
Yeah, yeah. Now, don't get me wrong. I think some people can really get some good value off of that, right? I know a lot has changed, but some of these settings are used for are good, and I believe people still get value from that. But we're talking tech guys or people who are starting off their tech careers or supporting their family devices and stuff like that. Now we keep it light, we keep it a little loose, a little more easygoing, and we just have conversations about tech. We have a lot more fun. It's a lot less stress to make sure that we pack in every single detail that we can to get our to get our point across or to get that lesson in for that episode. So what I'm thinking we're going to do today, I'm going to keep it simple again. We're going to go back and we're going to pick our favorite tip from last year. We got some really good tips from some of the best and the brightest in the teaching industry, right? We got teachers, we got parents, we had some again some staff and faculty at the school, and we even gave some tips ourselves. And these were tips to get your student ready for back to school. So there was a lot of really good stuff on the list. We got a lot of thank you to everyone who provided tips for that episode. But we're gonna keep it easy today. We're gonna go back and we're gonna select our favorite tip from that episode, and a couple of them. We're not limited it to one, but we're gonna take our favorite tips and we're just gonna talk those through why we like them so much, how you can apply that to your life and your family this year, and we're gonna go from there. Also, we're gonna do a tip directly from Grandpa, right? Because yeah, we got the combined knowledge of all of these different teachers and things like that. We appreciate that, but Grandpa, we still have our opinions too. And this is a tech show, by the way, so you're gonna get some of Grandpa's tech tips today, directly from Grandpa. And no post show today. I know I talked about the music episode. The music that we grew up listening to and things like that, the different genres. But we'll get to that pretty soon. I have to put it off today for some work I have to get to right after the show. But how does that sound, Greg? What do you think?
I'm excited. Let's do this. I picked out my tips from last year and I got a couple for this year. So,
Okay, sounds good. Sounds good. So thanks everyone. Before we jump into that, I wanted to say thank you for everyone that's listening, that's been on this ride with us. Don't forget to do the whole like, subscribe, share, all of that. I kind of combine that into one word. The whole YouTube thing. Thanks for doing that. And as usual, thank you for joining us today. If you're new, yeah, subscribe to us. We got a lot to say. So, Greg, let's do some catch up real quick and give us an update on the trailer tech. What's going on? What's going on? You have to make a few changes, right?
well, last week, remember we talked about how was I going to solve the in-laws
Yep.
network coverage problem, right? And I was asking about repeaters because I thought, okay, well, that'll be a simple way to um,
Yep.
go in and just give them a little better coverage. And so while we were on the show, you were like, "No, you get what you pay for." And so I went and looked to see what was going on with Eero because I have all this Eero equipment, right? So remember, I covered
Yep.
a 2,700 square foot house and a backyard, and with the Eero setup that I had at the house. And so I thought, okay, well,
Mm-hmm.
maybe I can transfer, but that means you have to transfer the main Eero, right? That core Eero. The base stations are all compatible with any of the core station, right? But you have to
Mm-hmm.
have a core one. So I went on to look just to see what was available. So I ended up, long story short, I ended up purchasing the new, it's not the newest one. It's not the Euro 7. That thing is gigantic and it's ridiculously
Yep.
expensive. But I got the
Yep.
Euro 6 Pro 6E or whatever it is, right? So
Mm-hmm.
it was $100 off. Best Buy had it. They had it one here in stock at the store here where we're at. So I went over and picked that up. And so I did the show stuff, but then I came home and spent all afternoon. I put in that new Eero. I had to mount it on part of the wall. I had to run
Mm-hmm.
cable because I wanted to move the T-Mobile gateway to the front part of the trailer instead of the back. And so I moved the T-Mobile gateway, but I wanted the Eero more in the center of the trailer. So that means I had to run Ethernet cable from above the kitchen table through the
Mm-hmm.
bathroom into the bedroom, because that's kind of how our trailer's laid out. So did a bunch of cable management stuff. When my wife got home after she was watching the kids during the day, she helped me make sure it looked aesthetically, it looks good. And I sent Jason some pictures and did a pretty good job of running the cable. I had to
Yeah.
buy one more power cord because where I've got the Eufy hub, it wouldn't reach clear down to the ground where the power plugs are. I mean, that's
Yeah.
the one thing about RVs is the power plugs are where the power plugs are, right? There's not a lot of flexibility unless you want to start cutting holes in walls. And I don't even like to put nails and screws in walls. I like to use 3M. So
Yeah.
anyway, so I got
Yeah.
that new Eero. It's great. My T-Mobile speeds are way more consistent than they have been. I mean, there were periods of time, like we're in a semi-commercial area, right? And so I know that during the day, that T-Mobile tower that we're pulling from gets, it gets plenty of
Right.
use because we're in this more
Yep. A lot of
commercially area.
traffic.
So I expect it to be slower, but I have not seen speeds that have dipped down into the 20s. I mean, I'm going to run it right now, but I'm uploading, I'm downloading, I'm streaming the video, all that kind of stuff, and it's going to show. But I'm still going to hit probably 50. And most of the time when I run this, I'm well over 100. And I sent Jason one the other day that I was at 400. So that was pretty
Yeah.
nice considering it's cellular. So,
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
so it seems that it corrected some of that issue. I don't know if it was that or the fact that I started with a fresh network setup because it's a brand new network, new SSID. I didn't fiddle with it a whole lot. Did a couple of small things, but
Yeah.
anyway, so that setup got done, um, and super happy with that. I mean, for $150, I couldn't have
Yeah.
been happier with that. And then we actually went up to where our in-laws are, where we were, and have a storage unit to bring a bunch of stuff down. So I actually set up their new network here, then just took it up there and plugged it in.
Right. Right. A
So,
true network tech.
uh, yeah. So, but like I thought I'd be able to do, I can actually still get to it from the Eero app. So I can go in and I can see their network from here. And exactly what I thought, it's literally their two cell phones that are
Yeah.
connected to their network, right? I mean, there's just not this big demand. So I couldn't find one of my repeaters. It was hiding in a box down here. So it's with my stuff to take with me the next time. And I've got one repeater in their kitchen because, again, they've got their old thick walls. And then I'll stick another
Yeah.
repeater when next time I go up down in their basement. But even without those repeaters, they had great coverage everywhere, and I was getting consistent. I think their speed is like 50, so I was getting consistent 50s everywhere I went
Okay.
in the house. So pretty cool that I could administer it from here. And I told them which boxes were which, and I said, if you have a problem, you call me. I'll tell you if I need you to unplug the
Yeah.
ISP box or whatever. So, and I didn't worry about bridge mode because, again, it's just their two phones. I mean, odds of them
Right.
having ISP or IP conflicts and stuff like that was super low. So yeah,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
happy with
Yeah.
those.
Good. I'm glad that worked out. I know you sent me a picture, and this is my surprise because I'm so used to you just ordering things and having to wait a couple of days to get an update. But you text later that day. It was like, okay, it's set up. It's here. And you send me a picture, and I'm like, wait, what? I thought you were
Yeah.
ordering this thing. He was like, no, Best Buy had it in stock. Like, I know you said it was in stock at Best Buy, but I didn't know you were going to go pick it up. We couldn't get old Greg to drive, 15 minutes down the road for some reason. But yeah, new Greg, St. George Greg is he's on it. He's on it. He's up
Well,
and down the road. He's on the e-bike. He's swimming. He's a lot more active.
it wasn't 15 minutes to get to Best Buy. It was 45 from where I was. So, yeah, this
Okay.
is much better. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
but the other quick update I want to give. So I got those Eufy cameras, right, as part of our
Right.
discussion about what I should have in the trailer. So I don't know what it was. The first week or so I had them, so I charged them up to full, but after a week they needed to be recharged. So,
Okay.
um,
Both, or just the one
both
we were talking about?
both
Okay.
did. No, both did. So, um, so I recharged them, and then oddly enough, the one that you would think gets the least use, which is on the backside of the trailer where the bikes are,
Mm-hmm.
um, drained pretty fast. So the main one that's out here on the front porch was at like 86%, and that one was down to 19% in the same amount of time. And so I thought, okay, well, I wonder what's going on. I checked all the settings I could, and it's kind of weird. I'm almost ready to take them out of HomeKit. Not quite, but I'm almost ready to take them out of HomeKit just because I hate fiddling with them in both the Eufy app and the HomeKit place. But I
Right.
checked all the settings. They're pretty similar. But here's the weird thing. So I recharged the bike one Sunday, and I didn't
Mm-hmm.
get it fully charged because I was ready to go to bed, and they take forever to charge on a 5-watt charger, which is what they're supposed to have. But so it was at about, I think, so my main one was at 86%, and I think that one I charged up to like 89% or something like that, right? So I thought, okay, they're close enough now that I can watch them and see, do
Mm-hmm.
they discharge at the same rate? Well, I went in and looked this morning, and that bike camera is now sitting at 94%.
Oh.
So I don't, there must have been some sort of a communication thing or whatever the case may be, right? That the battery percentage was wrong, but it's sitting at
Yeah.
94%, and the regular one has gone from 86 down to 84%. So, I mean, they are
Okay.
not discharging very quickly at all at this point. So I just need to see if that stays stable.
So now I'm wondering if there was some kind of software update and maybe they were still. I wouldn't imagine they would
Yeah,
update over battery though, right? You should have to have them plugged in and charging to run an update, but I don't
who
know. Maybe
knows?
they felt the update was small and they pushed it out and it drained their battery or
Or
something like that. But
the battery charge reset everything. I don't know. I don't.
yeah,
So, but what I have coming today, I told Jason this the other day. What I have coming are two. They're not Eufy specific, but they're two generic 5-watt solar
hmm
panels that are coming, and they've got the same basic mounting system as these. So, like, I've got these cameras mounted on a what is it, like a 4x6 or a 4x8 chunk of treated wood. So
okay,
I could actually mount these solar panels. They've got a 5-foot cable, so I could actually put them, somewhere else if I wanted to. So they're not discharging very quickly, but I've got those two solar panels. They only cost me like $30 for the two
yeah,
panels. So, and since these cameras do micro USB, micro USB, um, the cables that come with it will work, and they also come with a USB-C adapter. But anyway, I've got those two solar panels coming, so I've got to decide now that maybe that camera seems to be stable. Do I really want to
hmm
keep these solar panels, or do I send them back? But I was thinking more about, when I'm not here or something like that, do I want to have the solar panels? And I know I'll probably move at least one of the cameras inside, right? When I'm here,
right,
like my bikes. If I leave for vacation for a week, I'm not going to leave my bikes sitting out there.
yeah, yeah. You'll
I'll put
put
them
it
in the
inside.
storage unit or inside. Yeah. And so I could move one of the cameras inside, plug it in, and then not have to worry about it. So I don't know. We'll see when the solar panels come. Maybe I'll hook them up for a week or so and try them again. Amazon. So if they don't decide I don't want them, then I'll just send them back. So, but yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
pretty happy with those. And then on those cameras, the other thing I said I was having a problem with, right, was I couldn't view the live video through HomeKit. at least
Right.
not
Right.
consistently. Um, when I got to my in-laws, I had the same problem. And so I turned off the Wi-Fi and went to cellular, and I was fine.
Hmm.
So there's something about
Okay.
the Wi-Fi's connecting in to it, but again, I don't know that I really care. I can see the live stuff in the Eufy app, which is fine.
Yeah.
But honestly, I don't at this point. I've got a bridge anyway, so I don't know that I need them in HomeKit. There's no cool automations. I'd have to get into shortcuts to try and do the really cool automations and stuff like that, right? Because
Yeah.
there's the only automations that are native in the home app for the security cameras are just not great.
Yeah.
So
So that part is still going. A little bummed though that you're not having as good of a HomeKit experience as I set out. I thought you were going to be able to control all of your devices. We wanted to get everything in the HomeKit because it is a superior experience compared to all of the manufacturer apps.
right.
I do find myself having to go back to my security camera app, which is Arlo, which is the number one that I recommended for you, but we had those other requirements. But since you have to have a base station, the hub that goes with it, and since it's not working very well in HomeKit, do you want to try the other brand or you want to stick with Eufy for right now?
No, I'm just gonna stick with it. I mean, I like what it
Okay.
is.
It's a good,
Um,
they're good cameras. Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
working just
I,
fine. So,
yeah.
and I thought I didn't know what to expect coming down here, right?
Right. Right.
But there's just not as many concerns as I thought we were going to have here, right? I
Yeah.
thought, the more I get comfortable here, and people are great, and they've got a cam post here that is here all the time, and they've got security cameras on the property, and so I don't think I need to overdo it.
Yeah.
In fact, one of the automations I set up was anytime the front door camera got activated, it would play a knocking sound in the HomePods, on the HomePod
Right.
minis,
Right.
which was great. But the problem was you couldn't get it to stop easily, and you couldn't get it to start your music back up. It's not like it did it and then your music picked back up or something like that. And so it
Right.
was not great. So anyway, I already have them. I could probably still return them at this point, but I don't know that I want to fiddle with anything
Yeah.
else. When
I
I
knew.
get the new trailer, we might have to make some other decisions about what I'm going to do and stuff like that. So,
Right.
no, I mean, I'm happy with them. I have no
Yeah.
complaints. I
Yeah.
have no thoughts of wanting to return them. I was just a little concerned about how quickly I didn't want to be charging the battery once a week. That seemed to be not a good idea, especially if we were gone at the wrong time, right? If I forgot to charge it when we were going to be gone for a weekend or something like that. So,
Right. Right. So Greg mentioned that they don't have nowhere near as many concerns as they thought they would have coming into their new home. We compared yard work yesterday. We both did yard
eh,
work. I took maybe about 6, almost 8 hours, somewhere between that, to just my front yard. That's not even the backyard. I still have a leaning tree I need to trim. But yeah, I'll say 6 to 7 hours. Greg, yours was 5 minutes.
5 minutes. Yeah.
5 minutes and done. So yeah, nowhere near as many concerns as you used to have. So really
Yeah.
cool.
It's a big difference from this to a half acre that I had before.
Yeah,
I actually
yeah.
mentioned that
Oh
to
yeah,
my
I'm
wife
pretty
the other
sure.
day. I said, isn't it nice to not have to worry about looking out and going, oh, there's always something to be done. There's always weeding to be done. Because we had a big long rock driveway in the backyard, and there was behind our shed. And so those stupid weeds would grow to be like 3 feet tall if you didn't stay on top of them. And you could go away from
Right.
a weekend and have none. And when you came back, they'd be a foot tall. And so, yeah, it was nice it's nice to, when I get done with work, to be able to say, oh, I don't need to find a house chore or a yard
Yeah.
chore to be working on. So
Right.
yeah.
Right. Yeah. Good change of pace. So let's get into some current stuff. Not much news going on right now. There was something interesting you sent the other day, and of course, tech nerds are going to see this and they're going to pick it apart. And they had the specs, and the expected the rumored specs, not nothing is finalized yet, but the iPhone 16 is going to get some battery improvements, which
Yeah.
again, it's not really a big deal to the average user because we're talking. I should have pulled it up. It was a minimal improvement, but to tech nerds, we know that that can translate into a lot, right? That can actually, under the right conditions and the right settings, can get you a couple of more hours out of battery use per day. And yeah, I think it was pretty good. What did you think, Greg?
Yeah. So I mean, it's 5 to 10% improvement in
Yeah,
battery. I just pulled it back up. But so the reason I sent this over to you is because I'm trying really hard not to buy a new iPhone this year.
yeah,
Really trying hard, especially with some of the rumors that next year is going to be a bigger redesign year for the phone. I mean, it's all rumor, but
hmm
so whatever. But I'm trying hard not to. I know I want to get a new watch this year. I actually was just talking to Karen last night because I took her old watch and she got a new one, but now she's thinking she wants a solution to listen to music in the pool. So I'm
right.
right back to where I was before.
Yeah, you have to
So
give her her
anyway,
watch
so
back.
yeah, I'm trying hard, really hard not to buy a phone this fall. So, but the one thing, even though I've got the Pro Max, I mean, if I could get 3 or 4 more hours of battery life out of this thing, that would be tempting, right? So
Yeah,
I don't know how much it's really going to be. We'll see what they say. We'll see what else comes in, but it would be tempting to go with that extra battery life. But yeah, just
yeah,
rumors. It just dawned on me the other day that we're like a month away from Apple event.
yeah,
It
yeah. It's
just dawned on me that that's the case.
yeah. So it says here, I'm looking at it. So the biggest change is going to come to the Pro. Rumors,
Right.
again, rumors. So that one comes in at 9.25. So nine and a quarter, almost 10% change to the Pro, which is the device you were leaning towards, right? You said you weren't going to go with the Pro Max anymore because you didn't feel like you really needed a huge phone like you've been having.
Well, I
Other than the
don't, but
battery, I mean the camera
it's
improvements.
the camera, right? So if they
Right.
make all cameras equal, I don't think I'd get the bigger phone,
Yeah.
right? But I
Yeah.
mean, I don't take hundreds of pictures every day, but when I take pictures, I take
Yeah.
the kind of pictures that I want to be as good as they can. In fact, I need to hurry and send you. I
Right.
just remembered I was out on a ride yesterday and I took a couple of pictures of some different landscape that I'm pretty sure you're going to enjoy.
Yeah, I love those views, man, especially when you go to the top of those hills or those mountains and you take a picture down in the valleys and stuff. That is, 'cause, we don't have stuff like that here in Houston, and I really only see those types of views on vacation or traveling or something like that. And this is like your daily life, you know what I mean? So I
Yeah.
love when you send those pictures.
I just sent you
So
two. This is my ride yesterday. It wasn't even 10 miles from my house and I was on my bike. This is one of the state parks that's right down
yeah,
here.
wow. I mean, these are so. Like Greg said, he loves the camera, and the Pro Max has a awesome camera on it. I mean, and he sends some of these pictures. They are like wallpaper quality. Like these are like some of the HD wallpapers that you see posted online. You download the package and you pick the best one and just use it as your wallpaper on the back of your device. It's yeah, man. What was the temperature like while you were out?
Well, I went early in the morning because Karen's had to get up early and go over to the kids' apartment
Yeah,
early because instead of sleeping over there because my daughter's working a little later this week. But it was probably in the low 80s, I would think, at that point
yeah.
yesterday.
Okay, so it was nice. It
So
was it was a nice ride. Not too bad.
yeah,
It's not
yeah.
not low 70s, but still, yeah, really cool, really
So yeah,
cool.
that's
So
that's the thing. If they improve the camera again, it's going to be hard for me to resist. If they improve the battery life and the camera,
yeah, yeah, you're gonna have to jump on it. So the Pro Max, which already has a bigger battery, it's not getting as big of a change as So we're looking at 5.74, which is a little under a 6% improvement, but the battery life in the Pro Max is already well above the Pro anyway. So these, although minimal changes, 10% can translate into some pretty good battery life throughout the day. So again, to the average person looking, they'll be like, no big deal. But I mean, 30 plus hours a day. I mean, that's
Yeah.
pretty good. It is pretty good.
Well, and this might be relevant because I've got two of my kids that may be buying their own cell phones for the first time ever
Hmm.
because they're both getting to where they want to upgrade, but they're both at the point where they should be buying their own upgrades, not dad buying them for them. So, and none of them
Right.
want the Pro Max. That's my other problem, right? With the Pro Max is nobody wants the bigger phone. They would both want the Pro. So if they could get better battery life, I'm sure they'd be thrilled.
So you mentioned too, we're on the heels of another, Apple event, and it reminded me last night because the new version of the iOS 18 beta 5 was released yesterday. And I'm like, wow, Apple's really getting fast and furious with these updates, So I believe we're going to get to maybe every week or every week and a half or so update until the release candidate is out. So iOS 18 beta 5 came out, and along with iPad OS, tvOS, Mac OS. Stay away from them as usual. We always recommend that unless you guys know what you're getting into. But if you just have to, wait for the public beta, which should be out this week too. Um, so yeah, the public beta is more geared towards more stable. Again, we're talking about a beta, so nothing's going to be as stable as the main release, but more stable than these developer betas, less bugs, and you shouldn't have as hard of a time doing those betas than you would a developer beta, right? So
Yeah.
they're out
I still have
now.
none. I still have not put any
Yeah.
on.
So are you gonna when the public beta is released this week? Are you because I know you were leaning towards the next one. It should be
I
out.
know. I don't know. It'll depend on the
Yeah.
timing and what else I have going on.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I understand. And even as tech guys, sometimes we just don't want to fiddle with things that we don't have to, right? If it's not broken, don't fix it just to play around with it. Although that's what we do most of the time anyway. Let's get
Yeah.
into our tiny tech tip this week. So, our tech tip this week, we usually would be, since this is a back to school episode, we've recommended this before. This is usually the time in the show where we would talk about Apple's back to school sale that they have every year, right? And this is a program that they have. What they call it, Apple in Education or Apple Education Program or something like that. Well, what they do basically, you buy a brand new device at full price, and they give you $100 gift card um, to use towards something else, right? Well, $100 for a MacBook, MacBook Air, iMacs, of course, anything big. I think it's $100 for an iPad. Let me see here,
It's right now.
and,
So I'm
and
looking at it here. So if you buy an iPad or a Mac with education savings, you can get up to $150 in gift
yeah,
cards.
yeah. So not really a big deal. Again, we recommend that all the time. We recommend it to students and stuff, and it is a good deal. I mean, $100 gift card will go a long way to getting. And you can use this in the actual Apple Store, so you can buy cases and accessories and things like that. I don't believe you can use it towards Apple Care, but you get a discount towards Apple Care for students,
Well,
right?
you
Don't they
can.
get like
You could also use
20%
it
off?
for apps because I think their
Yeah,
cards now are all one, right? So apps,
yeah,
music, videos, hardware,
yeah,
any of the stuffs.
yeah. And $100 goes a long way. But what I've noticed, and I've been recommending this to anyone, is even on Reddit and stuff when I'm answering those questions about um, what do I buy for school? I'm a student or whatever. I always recommend going and checking the Apple refurbished site, right? Whether you're looking for an iPod, an iPad or a MacBook or an iMac or something like that. Always check that Apple refurb site, because if you can get the device that you're looking for, that you're leaning to, it's always going to be a better deal. Plus, you can add Apple Care onto the
Yeah.
device as if it was brand new. and there's just no beating that, right? You buy a device that's used from someone online or something, which again, I don't have a problem with either because you can score some good deals buying secondhand technology and stuff. I like secondhand technology. I have a brother who can't stand it. He will not recommend buying secondhand technology. That's just the way he is, you know. Greg, you're that way too when it comes to certain things. You would rather have that peace of mind knowing that you put all the miles on it instead of someone else. So to each their
Yeah.
own. But
But here's the thing. So the one caveat to the refurb is it's going to be older generation devices. It's
yep,
rarely, if ever, current gen, right? And so
yep,
here's what I would say: if budget is going to be your number one and or number two driver for this stuff, then there's nothing wrong with looking on the refurb store. They're not going to
right,
sell stuff that's going to go out of date tomorrow on the refurb store, right? You're probably going to get stuff
yep,
that's 1 or 2 generations older, which for the most part on anything that you're going to purchase is good to go. So if
yep,
that's the concern, then definitely look at refurbs. My only hesitation is like Dustin, we got him an iPad Pro when he got back from his mission, and he has
hmm
now used that thing for 4 years, right? Or whatever
yep,
it's been since he got back from his mission. And so if you're saying, I'm buying a device right now and it's got to get you through your entire 4-year degree, right? Or it's got to get
hmm
you through 4 years of high school and into college, or whatever the case may be, then I'm a little more hesitant to go back a generation or two, right? Just
right,
because you know what the longevity of you want this device to be. So in those cases, if you're saying this is a one-stop shop, you're not getting another computer for your 4 years, I would recommend taking advantage of the education discount and get what you need there. Again, if within your budget, like Jason said last week, don't compromise future you, but
yep,
within your budget, take advantage of the education discount and use the gift card, right,
yeah.
for the extra stuff, because no matter what you get, there's going to be extra stuff you're going to need for it. So,
Yeah, yeah, and I'm not knocking it at all because the education program is probably one of the best sales that you can get directly from Apple, right? If you keep up with, you know, subscribe to Best Buy's newsletter and Amazon and stuff like that, you may see deals come up on holidays and towards the end of the year, shopping season, Black Friday and stuff. But directly from Apple, that $150 gift card or $100 gift card, it's not going to get any better than that. So.
right.
Um, yeah, definitely. It's a good program. It's a good sale. You know, along with all the extra stuff. But let's take a look real quick. So I figured it'd be fun to go on live. Let's take a student. Let's take someone graduated high school and their first year college student. What would we recommend to them? And let's do a price comparison. Let's see if we can go on the refurbished site and find something cost effective for them that would, you know, relatively good specs. So I'm jumping on now, looking at the MacBook Pros. They actually have some refurbished M3 chip um, MacBook Pros, which is surprising because I
So why did
expected
you
to
go
see
to the
M1 and
pros?
M2.
Why did you go to the
Well,
well?
you're right.
Yeah,
You're
they've
right.
got some they've got some M3s, because the rumor is that the M4s are launching in October. So,
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
So,
So these will be outdated fairly quickly, but you're right. The pros came up first. I would recommend to a student. Well, again, so we talked about this before. Dependent on the software, so check your classes, see what classes that you're you know sign up for, and if they require some specific software, right? If you're a freshman, you're not going to be taking your you know those core classes yet. So if you're an architect, you're not going to be in a class where you need like heavy duty architecture software or whatever. But remember, we talk about future proofing. You're going to
yep,
need, depending on your major, you're going to need some more power eventually, right? So depending on the software and stuff you have
maybe.
to run for these classes, yeah,
Right.
maybe, and a lot of stuff is
Yeah.
web based. A lot of stuff is web based. But first year college student, let's go with a MacBook Air. You wanna take a look at those?
Yeah, you pull up the refurb. I've got the brand new ones up because remember they
Okay.
still sell the 13-inch M2. So
Right. Which
and
is
we take
a good one.
$100 off of any of these for the education discount, right? Because you're going to use your
Right.
.edu email address to get the education.
So I'm looking at, I don't know if you need an 8-core one. Yeah, let's go down to a
Just
more
go
entry level.
8 core 8 core CPU is well, 8 core CPU is all they offer new right now. The GPU can,
Okay.
and you could go up from there. The GPU is 10 depending on if you get the M3, but
Okay. No, I see an 8-core GPU, 8-core CPU, M2, 13-inch in the black, or what do they call it? The space black color. So
okay.
I'm looking at 849. So $150 off. I guess it's the same as the education discount, but this is, 849. This is 150 off of the price of the MacBook. So yeah, I'm looking at
Yeah, so
849 here.
$999 is the M2 88 13-inch. Take $100 off that for the education discount, right? And
Right.
so you're at $899 versus 849. I think those are sixes. I don't think it really matters. You might as well go ahead and save the $50 from a refurb standpoint if you're going with the M2. Do they have any
Yeah.
M3 Airs in refurb?
Let me go back and check. I don't believe so. No. It immediately drops down to the M1.
Yeah. So
Oh no,
if you want a
actually
few,
I was wrong. They do have one. Here's
okay.
a refurbished Air M3 chip, 8-core CPU, 8-core GPU, space gray for $929.
So that'll
So
be $70 cheaper than brand new with the education discount. So if you can find those, I absolutely say go for that kind of stuff, right?
yeah,
Because you're getting, and that one, unless you're going into a technical profession, right, where you're going to need the horsepower, that 13 or the 15-inch version of that M3 MacBook Air is going to last the 4 years plus. In fact,
yes,
if you were going to do a master's program in education or a master's program in English, right, or a
yeah.
foreign
You can
language
take
or
this one.
something like that, it would last through your master's program, no problem.
Yeah,
So,
I think so. So, and that's a good point. I think that's a good tip too to add in. The later version you buy, you won't be talking about buying another laptop your senior year or something like that. Or like Greg said, if you want to go into your master's or something, your technology, your tech, you won't have to replace that. Unless you
yeah.
want to, unless you wanted to. A lot of people get gift cards and things for graduation, and they may get some Apple gift cards, or someone may gift them a newer laptop. But if you're buying things yourself, yeah, you can keep this with you the 4 years plus versus going
Oh, yeah.
back and getting one of these refurbished M1s. Well, of course, you'll save a lot, going in. That initial investment will save you a ton. Um, but, senior year, junior year, you may be saying, hey, I need to upgrade. Or you're
Yeah.
running
Yeah.
extra software, some heavy duty software that's not web based or something like that, that you're having to install directly on the laptop. And yeah, you
Yeah.
may find yourself needing to upgrade. So,
So I think the best advice here is figure out what you want, figure out what your budget is, then check the refurb site to see if they have that. Now, I personally don't
yeah,
think I would go back to the M1 at this point. I mean, it's still a great
yeah,
laptop, but I don't think the longevity is going to be there, especially if they start releasing the M4 um, Pros in October, which means the M4
right.
Airs are coming next year, right? So I just don't think, especially when you start thinking about Apple Intelligence and that
Yes.
coming out. So yes, it'll run on the M chips, but that's going to go out much, much, much faster. So I don't think I'd go back to the M1. I think I'd go M2 back is as far as I'd go back. And
I agree.
if you have the extra $70 buying the or the extra $100, I guess is what it translates into, get the newer chip, right? If the $100 is all it is and you really can do that, I would do it. Now, if your budget again is your number one thing, then go with your budget first.
Yeah, yeah, I agree with that. I think that even with iPads, I think we should not even be looking at the M1 chip at this point, especially with the M4s right around the
Well,
corner.
iPad, you get into another movie because I don't think you would recommend the M2 chip in an iPad to anybody.
No, I wouldn't. I
So,
wouldn't.
so you're if you're going iPad, you're going the M4. Go clear to the M4. So,
Right.
which is
If
a
you
whole
need to
other,
M anything, or go with the
yeah,
Air, yeah, I would
yeah.
recommend the Air, or even just the 10th gen. But yeah, with the MacBooks, unless you just find an awesome deal, because again, I said I'm not opposed to buying used or lightly used equipment, but if you're buying it new from Best Buy, Apple, Amazon, anything like that, then yeah, M2 and up at this point.
Now, the one thing I haven't heard on iPads, because remember the Air's got the M2 now. I have not heard any complaints about battery life with it.
Yeah, they fixed
So,
whatever was going on with the original.
yeah.
Yeah, they corrected that issue with the heat and all of
So,
that. I was in a Reddit group, and yeah, people are saying they're not having those problems with the heat and things like that. So yeah, they
so
fixed it.
not to sidetrack us, but on this iPad Pro, the- I when I draw on it, I've
Hmm.
learned that I have to keep it in the case when I draw on it, and I've been doing some pretty intensive note taking stuff, like to the point where sorry, there's this giant bug that just flew over here. I thought it was going to eat me. The closer you get to the equator, the bigger the bugs get, folks. Um,
Right.
but anyway, so um, I can feel when I rest my palm on the center of the screen, I can feel the heat. And the other day, I had the iPad out of the case and was drawing on it, and I could feel the heat in the back. But it was a PDF that was big enough that it was choking in files, the preview edit stuff, just the markup in files. I had to actually import the PDF into Notes to get it to not crash on me because it's a giant process flow diagram, and I had put hundreds of annotations on it. So
Right.
anyway, there is a little bit of heat. This thing does heat up when you're doing some of that stuff. So
Yeah, but
anyway,
not like the
sidebar.
old one. The old one was really
No,
hot. The old one would get
no,
like you have to put it down. It would get hot. So
yeah, no.
all right. All right, so good back to school tiny tip, guys. Just find the right device for you at the right price, and don't compromise future you trying to lease or trying to unless you have to. But there are way more options. Going back to one of our super techie shows when we talked about finance options and options to buy those new devices, we talked about a lot of different methods to buying, whether that be zero financing on an Apple Card, or some of these programs where you can split your payment up into 3 or 4 equal payments and things like that. So go back and check that old episode out. We had some really good tips on how to save on getting your new devices. Let's jump into the topic for today, Greg. It's our annual back to school episode. So we're going to talk about some of our favorite tips from our past episode, as well as some new tips that we have from Grandpa this year. So um, let's just jump right into it. Last year we had a lot of advice from teachers, administrative, faculty, staff, other family members, and things like that of what they do to get their students prepared for the new school year coming up. Right? It's back to school time. I'm already, my wife is already getting the kids back on their sleeping schedule because they were up. Like I'm a night person, so I'm usually up, in all hours of the nights, getting snacks and stuff, which I shouldn't be doing. Creeping around the house, checking on things, and if you heard me mention before, we call our kitchen table the conference table because my son is always at it like he's having a meeting, talking about the quarterly earnings report or something like that. So I know there's a problem when I get up at 1 a.m. or something like that, and he's at the conference table having a meeting with his friends on FaceTime or something. So they're back on a sleeping schedule and stuff like that. So that was one of the really good tips from last year, was starting that sleeping schedule early, starting to get them into that set routine. But one of my favorite tips that we got um, from last year was having a dedicated workspace. for homework, study. And it goes beyond that. It goes beyond schoolwork. It goes things for like meditation or just checking on um, your grades and stuff like that. Having a dedicated workspace for things like that, man, it's a really good idea. Whether that's the kitchen table or the conference table, as we call it, a living room table, or having a nice desk set up in their room, right? If you're able to have a room for your child where they can put a desk and have their computer and stuff there, if you allow it, have their uh, uh, buckets for their not buckets, but storage containers for pencils and pens and glue and just having everything at their disposal right there in that dedicated workspace. Man, that really goes a long way for productivity, for focus, for and again, even if they're not doing schoolwork, just having a space for them to read, to start reading books and stuff like that. That way they'll know, okay, I'm in this spot. Yes, I'm not at school or I'm not at my desk in the classroom or whatever, but I'm in this spot. This is time for me to be, I think we call it a physical focus mode. Greg, remember when we had that episode?
Yeah.
A physical focus mode. You're putting yourself in an environment to be able to focus on that one task that you have to get done, whether that be homework, reading a book, reading a chapter, writing a story, writing a paragraph or something like that, coloring, doing art and stuff. Having that dedicated workspace for that really helps your child be able to focus on that one task rather than doing it in front of the living room TV or the family TV or or something like that. It minimizes those distractions, and that was one of my
Yeah.
favorite tips from last year. What do you think about that, Greg?
Yeah. I mean, one of the things I've heard over and over again about the Vision Pro is the ability,
Right.
let's say you're a writer, right? So I need to go write an article. And so I'm going to put on the Vision Pro. I'm going to pick the same environment over and over and over again, right? And I'm going to
Yeah.
completely immerse myself in that environment on the Vision Pro. And it just kicks your brain into this, oh, I know what I'm supposed to be doing now. It fires up those
Yeah.
neural pathways. So, yeah, I'm all in favor of this. My wife is getting the grandkids ready. So I've got one going into kindergarten, one going into preschool, and then the other one is too young. We'll just be doing daycare. But she set up this is your school station. This is, and it isn't for them to sit because they don't have that kind of space, and they're a little small for some of that kind of stuff, right? But this is where
Right.
they come, they hang their backpacks, and they've got buckets underneath there for all their other stuff, so they know exactly where it's going. And they got so excited, right, to be able to set that
Mm-hmm.
up that the little one that's not going to school had to go get his backpack, which was loaded as a diaper bag, basically. And so we had to
Nice.
unload everything so he could hang his up too. So I think this is super important. I am looking forward to the time when, so I can be out here outside until about noon, and then it's just
Mm-hmm.
too hot. I mean, it's going to be 109 degrees here today. So even with the fan on me, I'm actually getting a little warm even now as we speak. But um,
Right.
I'm looking forward to being outside to work, right? Or being outside to
Yeah.
read. And one of my wife and I's favorite things to do when we camp is to put our hammocks up.
Yeah.
And we get lost when we get in our hammocks, right? And we're on devices, and I'm going to talk about that here in a minute. But we're on devices, but I'm reading or I'm doing whatever. So I just think, and that's one of the reasons why I think I like the Apple Pencil so much is when I pick up that Apple Pencil and look at a document I need to review, my
Mm-hmm.
brain shifts versus if I have it up on part of the screen and my note taking app up on the other part of the screen, right? There's this shift that happens and my brain goes,
Yeah.
"Oh, we're in process review mode or whatever it is." So,
Right.
yeah,
Right.
I'm a huge fan of this.
So I had on my list here to mention Greg had one of my most favorite workspaces of all, and he just mentioned it was his hammocks in the backyard, and he would send a picture sitting back in the hammock with his iPad or his MacBook or something in his lap, and he's working away with the grandkids playing in the yard there, and like wow, that's one of the best workspaces that it could be. So always enjoyed that, but yeah, a dedicated workspace, um, and not only having a workspace for him, it's great for parents to, or guardians or whoever to set that workspace up for them. But what my wife does, and I do by way of paying for most of this stuff, is getting them involved into creating that space for them, right? Letting them
Right.
personalize it to a way that works best for them. We just got my daughter we actually got both of them a new desk. Her a new desk. Him a really good used desk that we found on what is it, offer up here around town, and got it, sanded it down and painted it, and I have pictures of me and him working on the desk and getting it to match his decor and stuff in his room, because we just remodeled his room, and it looks like a brand new desk. I mean, we got it, we cleaned it up and remodeled it and stuff, and he participated into creating this workspace for himself. Same with my daughter. She got a lot of his old like containers and stuff like that. We repurposed those for her, and she spent yesterday organizing the desk to the way, she's 8 years old, and she enjoyed that
Yeah.
process of creating his own personal workspace for herself, even though she wanted to go a different, more expensive route. I'll tell you about that. 8 years old, and she's already in the store making excuses of why she needs something else instead of what we had planned for. But she enjoyed that process. Now she has a new dedicated workspace for school and homework and stuff, and she's excited to start using that for schoolwork and stuff. So again, that's my tip. Not to keep going on about it, but a dedicated workspace and allowing them to customize and create that workspace is going to be a great tip to get your child ready for school this year. All right, Greg. So what do you got?
From last year, I pulled two because the one I'm not going to hound on because I hound on this all the time. So the biggest one that I have is every year you should be having the conversation with your kid. Probably not every year, way more often, but have the conversation with your kids about tech, how you expect them to use
Yep.
it, restrictions, how you're going to monitor it, all those kinds of things. I just can't emphasize that enough. I'm not going to dive into it here. You can go pick
Yep.
any of our episodes at random, and you'll probably hear me talk about having conversations with your teenagers about tech. And my new tip for this year is going to be related to this. So I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole because Jay knows I'll get lost. So
No. I'm gonna get into it because this is a tech show. We're not just grandpas and dads telling you what you should be doing with your devices, and we don't follow our own advice. So try not to get too personal here, but I have this conversation a lot with my middle son, my youngest son here, and we ran into a situation this week too. As a matter of fact, yesterday, because he came back with that usual teenage attitude, and I'm in the garage working. Remember, I did some yard work, and he walks by and he comes to the room, and I'm asking my wife, I'm like, "What's wrong with this guy? Like, what's going on?" So she tells me he's upset because the limits on his Instagram isn't giving him the time that he wants on Instagram. So I'm not going to go into the whole social media thing because parents, you choose to manage your kids' device as much as you want, but we have to limit social media here in our home because we see differences in the behavior and stuff like that. So long story short,
yes,
his device is not giving him the time, the summertime, because we adjusted for the summer. I gave him a couple of extra hours, but it's not giving him his couple of extra hours. So again, I asked my wife, well, what's wrong with this
so
guy?
it went back. So you went back to school restrictions, not summertime restrictions.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly, exactly, but not
Okay,
intentional.
okay, but let's pause for a second here.
Yeah,
If
yeah,
you don't think that there is a potentially addictive nature to social media, you
yes,
just proved that there is
yes,
right there
yeah,
because it changed his attitude. And it isn't just him. I mean, I know your son, it's not just
yeah,
him, right? It's all of us with any of these habits that we develop. When we get thrown
yep,
off of those habits, you can tell. You can
yes,
tell.
yes. And there's withdrawals, and let me tell you what type of mood he should have been in. I'm talking about what's wrong with his attitude. He's coming back from school shopping, buying the clothes and stuff that he wants to wear for school. He should be in an awesome mood. And awesome, you know what I mean? It should have been one of the happiest days of the summer because he's out buying shoes and clothes and stuff like that. He's in his skater phase. he wants to be a skater, so his clothes are a little more baggier than I want to allow, and a little more baggier than I think the school is going to allow. So we're gonna see what kind of issues we run into. But he should have been in an awesome mood. But dealing with, like Rick said, the addiction and stuff to social media, he's in a terrible mood. So it comes in, and she's like, well, so I'm not the IT person. Did you talk to your dad? He's, well, I keep telling dad and he's not doing it. I'm not doing it intentionally. I need to go in and see what's going on with the settings. But long story short, I go in and it's telling me his device hadn't checked in 5 days. So I hadn't investigated it yet, but I told him, like, simply, maybe whatever hack you found or whatever workaround you found, because it's always a cat and mouse game with me and this guy, whatever hack you
Yep.
found that's not allowing your device to check in, that may be what's affecting it. You went on to Reddit or one of your friends told you, oh, just do this and try to hide your device from your parents. Maybe whatever you're doing, and I apologize in advance if I'm accusing him of something he didn't do, but whatever's going on with your device not checking in may be the issue that's causing the issue with your Instagram time, because unintentionally I did give him extra time, but for whatever reason it's not allowing him. Also,
Yeah.
another thing, you know what? Let's get back to our focus. Let's get back to the subject, because
Yeah, because
we'll keep going.
I'm gonna do something a little different with this here in a minute. So let's move on from this. So
Okay, yeah. Let's leave that. But it's a cat and mouse game, and parents, you do have to stay
yeah,
on, have those
yep,
conversations with your child, not just back
yep,
to school. Have this monthly, weekly, whenever you can.
yep. But the other tip that came up, and it's funny because my sister sent me a meme about this. Do you remember the Disney Sword in the Stone cartoon? All right, so Merlin, when Wart shows up at Merlin's place, and Merlin decides he's going to go back with Wart, he's got to pack up his whole house, right? And he packs it all into
Mm-hmm.
his magic bag, and he's doing the hocus pocus, whatever it is, right? And everything's kind of
Mm-hmm.
jumping around and shrinking and going into his bag. Well, part of that is just book after book after book after book. And my sister
Right.
sent me this meme. It was like Kindle users loading their books, right? Because it's just book after
Right.
book after book. And my sister, I mean, I read a lot. She does too. I read hundreds of books a year. Okay, now I
Mm-hmm.
reread. I do reread. My sister does not.
Yeah.
So she doesn't
I've
like to
never
do that,
have,
but I like to
but my
reread.
wife does. Yeah,
Yeah.
Wendy does,
So
and I've never have. That's weird to me that you guys do that.
yeah. So um anyway, so my tip that I liked last time was reading. Get them to read every single day and ask them, hey, if we get you a beanbag in your favorite color and throw it in your room, would that help you to read? Because you could sit there and read your books, or get them the Kindle app and the Libby app, right? Get their library card, get it put into the Libby app. I
Mm-hmm.
discovered a new series that way, that I'm super excited to read, and it's popular enough that I'm on like months waiting list for book 2. Book 3 is available right now, but I can't get book 2 for like 2 months. So um,
Okay.
but anyway, so reading reading apps, Kindle, Libby. I use one that's more religious oriented, but also does a lot of the fiction stuff called Deseret Book. Um, Anything you can do to get your kids to read
Right.
appropriate, high quality, those kind of the things out of the best books, right? Let them find what they love to read and let them read as much as they are willing to read. Make it easy for them to do that. There will be nothing, I
Right.
believe, that will impact their overall education and progress in life when it comes to intellectual pursuits and stuff like that, as
Mm-hmm.
much as reading will.
Yeah, I think too, with my social experiment that I call my family here, we really push my the middle child to read daily and report back to us. That way we can make sure that he's not just reading it just to say, okay, I spent my 30 minutes reading, but actually comprehending what he's reading. And my daughter, we didn't push her so much to do that. Um, and we see the difference. We see the difference with their grades and how they handle different situations and stuff in life. So yeah, push your child to read. Another thing too, if I can add on to that, is not forcing them to read like Greg mentioned, read stuff that's fun for them, right? Not
Yeah.
necessarily something you want them to read or a reading level you want them to be at, right? You don't want to push your child so young to start reading chapter books and stuff like that. Even though I know some parents do. And again, we don't parent parents here. Do what's best for your child. But I notice if you let them start off reading the stuff that they want to read versus reading hand me down books from their older brother or stuff like that, um, yeah, they'll get more into reading. So allow them to read the
Yeah.
stuff that they want to read, the books that they want to be into, and don't push them to go to the next level or start finding bigger books or chapter books or something like that. So
Yeah.
yeah,
I
let
mean,
them read at their own pace.
a ton of the stuff that I read would not be considered adult stuff,
Right.
right? I mean, a lot of it would be teen. I mean, if you think about Harry Potter, right? I
Yeah.
mean, who was that really written for? Not
Yeah. For
adults,
teen.
but it got
Yeah. It's for teenagers.
everybody reading again, right?
Yeah.
Everybody. I mean, you couldn't, during that time, you couldn't get on an airplane and not see somebody, more than one somebody, right? Holding a Harry Potter book and reading.
Yeah.
So, anyway.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, so
So
that
good
was my
tip.
favorite one. Yeah,
Hmm.
those were my favorite ones. So, new tips? Should I dive into new tips?
Yeah. Yeah. Let's get back into these new tips. These are these
All
are
right,
tips directly from Grandpa.
I'm going to do one first, and then I'm going to do two that are tied together because they tie back to our conversation about talking to your kids about tech. So, my first one,
Right.
and I didn't bring this up back when we were pricing and when Jason was talking about MacBook Airs for your students, but honestly, if you're needing to buy a computer for your child or your young adult, I strongly recommend thinking iPad first. Prove that the iPad can't do what they need first.
Hmm.
And here's why. Definitely get them the MacBook if they are going to need the flexibility of the MacBook, right? But
Yeah.
like for my grandkids, they're on the older iPads, except for the oldest grandson who just got the new 10th gen. But my wife has no computer other than a 10th gen iPad,
Yeah.
right? Nothing other than a 10th gen iPad. My son that graduated from college in May has never had a computer that you would consider a computer. He has only had an iPad Pro. He had that original 10.5 when he first
Hmm.
graduated from high school. And then when he got home from his mission, we got him the 12.9 Pro. Okay. So think iPad first. And the reason you want to think iPad first is it's just so much easier to deal with, right? If you have not, I mean, Jason talks about this cat and mouse game. Can you imagine trying to play cat and mouse on a MacBook
Yeah.
with
Yeah.
a teenager? It's not. Things are simpler.
Yeah.
They can screw less things up. You have more controls over it. It's easier to fix when they do break things,
Yep.
right? So that's my first tip: is think iPad first, right? Think iPad
Yeah.
first. Can they get everything done that they need to with an iPad and a cheap Bluetooth keyboard? I mean, all of my kids that went to high school here in Utah had iPads. That's what they were issued. And matter of fact, I think my kids in Texas were iPad kids too. The ones here in Utah at the school we were at, they issued you your
Hmm.
iPad your freshman year. You kept it all 4 years, and then you got to keep it once you graduated.
Oh,
So,
cool.
anyway, iPad first. Think iPad first.
Yeah. Yeah,
So,
I agree with that 100%. You guys know I'm out iPad first. I love my iPad. And man, I think especially for students, it is the ultimate student device, right? Education, it runs, again, most apps are web-based anyway, so you're going to be using either Safari or the app is going to be some kind of window to a web-based tool and not necessarily running on the device. Um,
yeah,
Gaming, entertainment, things like that, watching movies on this big 13-inch screen. Um, Watching videos, things like that, taking notes, lay it flat and just take out a pencil. Doesn't have to be Apple's crazy expensive Pencil Pro or something like that, but one of these ones from Amazon will allow them to take notes on it, store all those notes and things like that. Yeah, the iPad is just, I think it's the ultimate student device. and then
Yeah.
if you need a little more then you'll move on to a MacBook. Um,
It's
but
not even
yeah, no, I
umph
like that.
anymore, right? I mean, because the iPad Pro's chip is the most powerful that Apple sells currently. It's more of
Those,
do I want to fiddle with the workarounds in order to do everything
yep.
on my iPad? This is the challenge that I face right now. I mean, I'm looking at my MacBook Pro and I've got my 12 point or my 13-inch iPad Pro in my lap, right?
Hmm.
There are only a couple of things that I have to do on that MacBook Pro. Outside of that, it's always is it easier to do on my MacBook or should I just do it on my iPad? And honestly, it's whichever
Right.
device I have up most of the time that I do it. But even some things like numbers and stuff like that can be easier on the MacBook. But it's really more of how flexible do you need it to be? If you need super, super flexibility and don't have the workarounds and stuff like that, then you got to go with the MacBook, right?
All right. Yeah. Yeah. Good tip. So, do you want to jump right into the next one, or
Yep. So here's my
okay?
biggest one. This ties into the having the conversation. So I was listening to a podcast the other day, and the um, the guy did his postgraduate work, including a doctorate in I can't remember what they called it, but basically it was um, education through technology, right?
Hmm.
Instructional design for tech or something like that. So basically his studies were all around transitioning from paper to tech for reading and studying and all of this other kind of stuff, right?
Right.
So it was really, really good. But one of the things he said is that the biggest problem that we have is we have this problem in classes, like Utah's working to ban smartphones in classes and all that kind of stuff. And I totally understand where they're coming from, right?
Hmm.
But I think I've told this story a few years ago. We were taking a group of youth to all of our church history sites. And this was a 5 or 6 day trip and supposed to be super religious, right? Uplifting, all that kind of stuff. And there was this huge debate over whether we let them take their phones or not.
Yeah.
Luckily, not luckily, but I was very grateful that the leader that made the ultimate decision agreed with my opinion, because of course I have an opinion, right? That we
Yeah.
should let them take them and we should teach them when it's appropriate to use them and how to use them, right? And we did.
Right.
And after that trip, we never had problems with youth with their devices in classes, in church, or any of those kinds of things because we taught them. But that's what this guy said. He said our biggest problem is we spend all of this time telling the youth what not to do with their technology.
Yeah.
And we don't spend enough time telling them what they should be doing with the technology or teaching them what they can do with it and teaching them the good things that come from their technology, because all we want to do is say don't look at stuff you shouldn't look at, don't be texting when you shouldn't be texting, don't
Right.
text and drive.
Right.
Yes, super important message to have out there, right? All that kind
Yeah.
of stuff. So he said the problem is, and if you survey the youth, that's what they say is, all I hear from my parents is what not to do. The reality is we live in a technology and social media, as much as I don't like it. We live in a technology and a social media world. No if,
Yeah.
ands, or buts about it. And we are going to, and our kids and anybody else we talk to are going to use technology. They're going to use social media. So my tip is start having the conversations about how they should be using their technology, the good parts of technology, the things they can do that
Right.
maybe they couldn't do otherwise, right? Talk to them about, if you're willing to check in with me, you can have more freedoms, right? I don't need to come get you from school every day if you're willing to tell me, "Hey, I'm going to be here and here's a check-in so you'll know when I get there, right? Or when I get home or whatever the case may be." I'm just trying to throw out some examples here, but
Yeah.
we spend so much time harping on the negatives and the dangers and the evils. And trust me, we do that on this show all the time. We did it today, but we need to
Yeah.
start talking to them about the good things that they can do with their technology and how it can bless and uplift and help make their lives better versus the things that we tell them not to do that'll make their lives less pleasant,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. And it goes back to, having that conversation. I think that, especially since he turned 13, I would say this year, uh, um, since he's been older, we did things like we stopped managing his contact list. Like, don't have a bunch of strangers or a bunch of, weirdos or something like that. And you can start managing it yourself. Um, I gave him more time in the summer. Like, okay, well, maybe just a couple of hours of social media is not really appropriate for the summer because you spend most of the time lounging around the house or at the conference table anyway. So we increase his time and stuff like that. So yeah, have those conversations with your child and yeah, talk about some of the good things. Some of
Yeah.
some of the things that you can do instead of just, no, I don't want you doing this. I don't want you looking at that. Saying, hey, check out this new app, check out this new game or something like that. And Duolingo is one that, again, we never got around to it, but we were gonna, because if I'm not mistaken, you can use that to compete with each other or something. There's some kind of game mode to
Yep.
gamify learning a new language or whatever. And again, me and my son, we really don't speak Spanish as much as my wife and my daughter does, but I thought that us all jumping on Duolingo and kind of competing and learning together would be a good thing. So yeah, that's another, thing to get them to use technology better is learn a new language together or something like that. I see you have like yoga videos and stuff listed here.
Yeah. Let
Uh,
me let me go through this. So here's something. This is and give them an so back in my day, I have to get that in at least once an episode, right? But my parents were worried about me being bored and finding bad things to fill my time with, right?
right.
Um, so we
Idle
camped.
hands.
Yes, idle hands. We camped. I had chores to do. They tried to provide me things to do. I could go to good friends' homes and be gone all day, and they didn't worry about me. I mean, it was a different age and all that kind of stuff. So there are so many good things that we can do with technology, right? And your
Hmm.
kids have passions. It could be their friends. It could be skating, right? That
Right.
your son is getting into. Find those passions and find good ways to feed those passions through technology. So, one of the reasons we got the iPad that we did for my oldest granddaughter is she went nuts when she saw me coloring on my iPad mini, right? And so
Right.
we got her a pencil and the iPad. And one of the first things I did was I downloaded Pigment, which is a adult coloring book, but it's fine for kids too. And every day they have a free page. Now you can pay the subscription. It's like $8 a month, but they have a free subscription. So, or a free page
Hmm.
every single day. And every time they launch a new set of coloring pages, they give you one free. So every time I go over on Sunday, I grab her iPad. I grab everything for free that I think she'll like. And so we're slowly building up her library of coloring. And I was over there on Sunday and I said, hey, come down here. Look at this page that Grandpa got. Oh, that is so cool. I remember I want to color the other one I was working on the other day. Right. And so
Right.
then she sat
Right.
down and colored on her iPad. So there's coloring apps, there's drawing apps, there are puzzle apps. I was talking to one of my clients this week, and he said he saw somebody doing puzzles on their iPad, and I'm like, oh yeah, my wife does that all the time. Actual puzzles, you drag the
Right.
puzzle pieces in place and stuff like that. So creative
What's the name of
stuff.
that coloring one? The coloring app again?
Pigment, pigment, Pigment. So find ways to feed that kind of stuff. If you think they're going to be into computer programming or something like that, you can grab Swift Playgrounds, right? And you can put it on an
Hmm.
iPad or a Mac and let them fiddle around with it and see if they like programming. But for almost any passion that there is, there'll be a good way to feed that passion with
Right.
technology, including, like I said, library cards for the Libby app, or get them a subscription to Kindle Unlimited so they can just go grab any of those 200,000 books or whatever it is and try reading them and go, oh, I don't like this one. I'm 5 pages in. I don't want to read it anymore. And you didn't spend $6 buying the book,
Right.
right? So there's some kind of things that you can do. So find ways on the technology to feed their passions. And then
Right.
the other thing is I labeled this facilitate analog. So I was reading about in a forum on vehicles and stuff like that last week, and one of the one of the comments was, "Your vehicle's fine. Go out and touch some grass. Get out of the forums." Right?
Right.
And I thought about that, but like for me, if I'm going to read, I'm going to be reading on a device, but I may be sitting in my hammock staring at the downtown here, right? Or I may be sitting on my
Right.
hammock on a mountain or whatever the case may be. So helping them understand, hey, yeah, take your Kindle, take your iPad, take your phone outside and read, right? I mean, you can put restrictions on apps, and maybe the Kindle app is the one that has no restrictions, right? Spend as much
Right.
time in the Kindle app as you want, those kinds of things. And then the other one, Jason already mentioned this, but my grandkids love their tablets, right? And there's studies that say they shouldn't have had them already, but that was our choice about how we
Yeah.
wanted to do this. And they are not babysitters for our kids. We do not do that except for on rare occasions, right? Like this week, two of the grandkids are going in for tubes for their ears, and I'm going to have the oldest one with me, but I'll have to work, right? So she's going to have to entertain herself. So will I allow more tablet time? Yes, because I'll be on meetings
Yeah.
and stuff like that. But they discovered what they call yoga videos. They call them yoga videos. They're really not yoga videos. But back during the pandemic, when nobody could go anywhere, there was this whole crop of YouTube videos that popped up of people creating
Yep.
environments and doing exercises. Like some of them look like Super Mario. So it looks like you're going through the Super Mario game, and they're telling you when to jump and when to duck and when to throw a snowball at the snowman or when to shoot your webs at this person. And so they call those things yoga videos. And my wife was telling me yesterday she made sure our daughter knew they needed to have a bath because they watched so many yoga videos that our middle grandson was just soaked in sweat, right?
Right.
Because they were
Right.
just, but they're, yes, are they looking at a screen? They are. But are they doing something that's not related to just scrolling aimlessly through social media? Yeah, they're being active. They're doing those kinds of things. So help kids understand what good they can do. Help them find passions. They are going to use these devices whether you want them to or not, unless they're
Right.
super little like my grandkids where I can take them and hide them, right? It's just not
Put them up
practical when they
high.
get a little bit, yeah. When they get older, it's just not going to happen. So and this goes for us too, we are going to use our technology. It's the world we live
Yeah.
in. Stop trying to say we shouldn't use it, and find the good ways to use the technology. So that's my big
Right.
tip. Have the conversation about the good ways, facilitate their passions. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. One of the things I always say about, you know, teenage adolescents and stuff like that, there's certain topics that come up, especially talking about young men, that it's going to happen anyway, right? These things are coming. Young moms or dads to young teenage boys, these things are coming, and certain how do I say this? Certain activities in life is inevitable, right? You got to look at it like a freight train. If that freight train is barreling down the track and it's coming, it's coming. If you jump in front of it and say stop, what's going to happen? You're going to get run
Yeah.
over, right? It's better to jump on that freight train with them and try to guide that freight train to
Yeah.
a more so just so it doesn't do any damage, right? If that freight train is out of control running, it's going to crash eventually and do a lot of damage to people emotionally, physically, things like that. But if you stand in front of that train, you're going to get run over too. Jump on these trains, this technology, the social media, the love relationships, all of those kind of things that come up with
Look,
teenagers, and just try to
yeah.
guide it.
Look, let's just, I'm just going to address the elephant in the room. I mean, one of the
Mhm.
plagues of technology is things associated with pornography. Okay.
Right.
So I
Right.
have definite opinions about pornography not being good. It is detrimental. I'm sorry if you don't agree with
Yep.
that, but that is the way I see life. And Jason says young men, but actually one of the biggest
Yep.
one
I
of
remember
the
when you told
fastest
me.
growing populations of users of pornography are females. So
Yep.
it's not just young men anymore. And average age of exposure last time I checked was 8 years old. And
Yeah.
average rate of
Wow.
exposure is 100%. Okay.
Yep.
100%. And so that's the freight train. It's coming. And you can either try and deny it, try and block everything, put filters on your routers, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
It's 100% for a reason.
Yeah.
100% doesn't mean there's 1% of people that figured out how to block it from everybody's lives. No, it's 100%, right? And
Yeah.
so when we talk about having conversations with people, it's about saying, hey, this is going to happen. These are the things you're going to go through. This is what you're going to get exposed to. I'm not talking about pulling it up and showing them. I'm talking about having conversations, right? And saying,
Right.
hey, you're going to see things that you shouldn't see, that you know we've taught you not to pay attention to, right? You're going to
Yeah.
hear things that we don't do in this house. And that doesn't matter whether you're whatever your beliefs are, right? They are going to get
Yeah.
exposed to things that are not part of the lifestyle you want for your family, that you don't expose them to at home. So you got to have that conversation with them, right? You've got to
Yeah.
tell them it's coming. You've got to build up a relationship so that when it happens, they still feel like they can come to you and say, hey,
Yeah.
this is what happened. This is how I handled it. Is there something else I could do, where you can have that conversation with them? Right. And then you've got to be able to be there to help guide them through this. Otherwise, they're going to take the path of least resistance, which is
Yeah.
not good.
Yeah.
So, I know we were trying a little bit to skirt around some of this kind of stuff, but
Yeah. I didn't know whether to jump right into it, or to just throw it out there. But yeah, you're right. We should confront it. We should. Yeah.
yeah,
We shouldn't skirt around it. And yeah, it's not a if. It's a win. It's a
yep,
win. And I remember when you told me about this study and stuff about, pornography and young girls. Man, that floored me, because it's always been, at least from my perspective, it's always been just kind of a young man thing. But yeah, I'm older now. I have a daughter and a granddaughter, and us as parents, we want to protect them from that. And our immediate, response is to just block it out. I think I
yeah,
mentioned before, I've grown as a parent, and I try to shield my older son away from things like that, and not have those conversations, and just be like, I was a young dad, and I've learned, here we are now, and I'm a young grandpa. So,
yeah,
lesson learned with him. And now I shifted into having these conversations with with my younger son, and you know, just talking to him about these things, and being open and uncomfortable. Sometimes these conversations are so uncomfortable, even with me. And I'm usually pretty easygoing when it comes to stuff. I don't have much pride and much shame and embarrassment and stuff, as I should have. But you notice, grandpas, when they get older, they just, some of those filters, they kind of go to the wayside. So I have these conversations with him, and I can see that it makes him uncomfortable, but they're important to have. They're
yeah,
important, especially this conversation. Whoever's listening, if you have young sons, I need you to let them know that even if these young ladies, these girls that they're looking at, are their same age, it is still illegal. It's still a crime to have those photos and those pictures and stuff. Doesn't matter if they're the same age. It's still illegal
yeah,
to have those images and videos and stuff on their phone. So even if their friends are sharing it, one, they shouldn't be sharing it to embarrass the young lady, or whoever, their classmate anyway. But if they are, you need to immediately tell them, do not send me this type of information, this type of material. I don't want it on my phone. I don't want nothing to do with it. So even if they're
yeah,
all the same age, if they're the classmates, it is still illegal to have. And that's one
yeah,
thing that we talk about weekly in my household. So if you have young
yeah,
sons or young daughters, let them know it's still, even if they're in their age group, it's still illegal to have that on their devices.
yeah. And we just hammered on pornography, right? But this isn't
Right.
just about pornography. This is about any value that you have, right? Any value that you're trying to instill in your kids, right?
Yeah.
They are going to get exposed to the opposite in the world. They just are. It could
Yeah.
be what kind of language is appropriate, what kind of jokes are appropriate, right? What kind of music is appropriate, how we treat adults, how we treat each other, bullying, you name it. Any value that you're trying to instill in your kids, in your family, they're going to get exposed to the opposite. And unfortunately, in our world today, and I won't get too philosophical on this, they're probably going to be told it's okay in some way,
Yes.
shape, or form, right? Because we're in this, and everybody does have the right to choose what their values are, all that kind of stuff. I don't knock that. So, but anything you're
Hmm.
trying to instill in your kids, they're probably going to be exposed to the opposite and told that the opposite is just fine and dandy, and it
Yeah.
may not be. Right. So you've got to be willing to have these conversations. You've got to be able to dive in. And this is the risk you run of having two grandpas on a podcast or a video,
Right.
is that we're going to get into this stuff, and it's fine if you don't agree and you may think things are okay and you may want to teach your kids differently than what we've just said. That's fine.
Yeah.
But the principle is you've got to understand what is appropriate for you, for your kids. You've got to have the conversations, because otherwise it will go the path of least resistance. And I can't think of a time when the path of least resistance will be what you want for your kids.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
In any situation. Any
yep.
situation.
All right.
So Greg,
Well, that was fun.
that got a little heavy. Yeah. They got a little heavy. Let's lighten it up a little bit. So I'm gonna jump into my tips. What first were you done going through your list? I know
Yeah, I'm
we
good.
talked about the yoga videos.
I think I'm good. Feed their passions, feed their positive passions through their tech. They're going to use
Yeah.
it anyway. Find enough good things for them to use it for, that they don't have room for the other stuff.
Yeah. Right. Okay. So I'm gonna lighten it up a little bit. Let's get back to easygoing grandpas. And my first tip is gonna, well, Greg, you kind of mentioned it here, was the think iPad first, right? Um, that's it goes back to that conversation we were having about buying what they need and not what they want, right? We may see, and I don't have it listed here. I'm going to jump into my lighter tip here, but so when I say buying what they need and less what they want, automatically when Apple shows those promo commercials or those those little TV spots and stuff like that, that device is always going to be maxed out to the it is going to be specced out on all of the the RAM, the storage, the chip that's in it. Those are always going to be, and that's automatically what people are going to want, right?
All of the
It's,
reviewers are going to get the high end. When they send
yes,
Marquez Brownlee the new MacBook,
right.
the new iPad, whatever it's going to be, it is
Uh,
not going to be the base model.
the
Remember,
entry level,
I bought a base model M3 MacBook Pro, and I didn't think I was going
right,
to, but that's where I ended up. That is not what they send. They send them the highest end
right,
of whatever it
right.
is, phones, tablets, you name it. It's the Pro version. It's the most
Yep.
expensive version. That's what's getting reviewed. That's what's getting advertised. That's what's getting reported on.
I didn't think about that too. I didn't think, and there's a strategy to that too. I didn't realize, because that's what happened with my with my iPad, right? Those Geekbench reviews and stuff came out, and they were all on that 1 terabyte version with
Yeah.
the additional RAM, the double RAM, and stuff like that. So you're right. I'm glad you mentioned that. That's a good tactic. When they watch their favorite YouTubers review this tech and stuff, they're never those entry level models, unless they're buying them for
Nope.
themselves. And there's some people that they buy every single model, you know what I mean, and they try them out. But
Yeah.
those are not every reviewer does that. They get their review units, and
That's
so
not who they're watching. They're not watching
right,
Brandon Butch, right? Who
yeah,
spent 20
yeah,
grand on iPhones last year
right,
or whatever it was, 10 grand,
right,
right? They're
yeah,
watching Marquez. They're watching these big flashy ones, right? And if Apple is sending them the gear,
Yeah,
it's not
they're
extra.
sending the best. So, but that's the thing. When you're buying technology and stuff, you want to buy them what they need, not necessarily what they want. Of course, everybody's going to want the Lamborghini. Everybody's going to want that. But do you actually need that? Right? We talked about different levels of student, right? Whether you're in middle school or elementary, what type of device you need. I don't think anyone needs a pro device. Any student needs a pro device in middle school or possibly even high school, right? So you want to be looking at your 10th gen iPads, your regular MacBook Airs or something like that, or regular MacBooks. Where there haven't been a regular MacBook since what, 17, 20?
Yeah,
I don't
so the
know.
MacBook Air, the 10th gen
Yeah,
iPad, maybe the iPad Air, right?
yeah. Then when you get to high school, you want to start looking at the Air and maybe a MacBook Pro or something like that, but definitely a MacBook Air, even into college. But then when, like we said, you start getting into these more um, these heavier apps, right? These apps that require more processing power and stuff like that. You're doing work, video editing, things like that. Then you start looking at the pros. But again, I don't think there's any elementary level, middle school level, or even high school level student that requires a pro level device. Now, that's my opinion. And again, a lot of that has to do with your means to be able to purchase these devices or what's available for you at the stores and stuff in your area or location. But let's focus on getting students what they need, getting your child what they need versus what they want.
Yeah.
um, with that, I'm going to jump into my next tip. um, that's you're never too young to start using that calendar app. And I know that's going to sound weird with people listening, like, why would my elementary child need a calendar app? Um, I love the calendar app. It's one of the most powerful built-in apps into this Apple ecosystem. And I know they say, we have Freeform and we have Find My Eye and we have uh, the Password app is now a standalone app in iOS 18 and iPadOS 18. And these are powerful first-party apps, but nothing is more powerful to me, in my opinion, than just a calendar app. So let me explain what I mean and why your elementary age child should start using it. Um, we use a shared family app here for everything. That's we live by our apps, our shared calendar, and the same thing with the business. We have a shared business app too, and that's when we put on all of our events and stuff coming up. Uh, um, I would forget every custom order. I had a custom order yesterday that went out. I'll forget every custom order if it wasn't on the calendar. Um, to our shared personal calendar, all of the kids' school events, doctor's appointments. I'm looking here. My wife, who they should be gone in there already. I don't. It's pretty quiet in there, so I think they already went. She has some blood work being done, and there's something for the school that a teacher meeting or something for related to night. There's stuff like that in my normal daily activities I would just forget about. We would finish recording the podcast. I would come out and be like, "Where is everyone?" But now I know that they're going to do. She's going to do her blood work and stuff like that. So, shared calendars for a family is one I think every family should be using. But talk about, again, elementary school age, middle school age kids. Why would they need a calendar? Man, sit down one night, first week of school or something, and have them add in all of their school events, right? Whether that be plays, and I know a lot of this stuff is not figured out. Some schools are or
No
less
school
organized than
days.
other.
Put in which
Yeah,
days you
yeah.
don't have to put them on the bus.
Yeah. Put all of that stuff in. My daughter, she has these things, and I'm pretty sure if you're listening, your kids or grandkids have the same. But they can wear hats to school. They can wear crazy socks to school on those days. They can wear sports teams. A lot of schools they limit. They have a limited dress code if they're not into uniforms and stuff like that. But on Fridays they can wear Astros shirts, or they can wear, Rocket shirts, or whatever sports team that they want, whatever favorite college team. Have them put stuff like that into their calendar. Set those reminders. and they get their reminders themselves on their devices, right? My daughter runs in with her iPad sometimes, and she's like, I can wear bunny ears tomorrow to school or something like that, and she's just so excited. So take the time to help them build their calendar out and share that calendar with the rest of the family. So they'll be and I don't want you to think too that this is really Apple focused, because Google has an equivalent to, all of these kind of like iCloud settings and stuff. Your Google ecosystem is sort of functions like the iCloud, so you can share your calendar, you can share your reminders and contacts and stuff like that between your family. I don't know about passwords and stuff. I'm pretty sure there's a way, but like we share passwords here in the home for certain things. But you can share all of that on Apple as well as Google or whatever ecosystem that you're in. There's some kind of version of this. But yeah, get them started on using that calendar early, and it gives them time management skills, right? It shows them, not necessarily punctuality, because I'm usually late to everything, despite being warned that I have a meeting coming up or an event coming up. I'm usually not punctual, but I know what's coming up. I'm able to manage that time. I'm able to prepare for things accordingly, and that'll help your child build those time management skills and stuff like that. So if they know, the night before that they can wear crazy socks to school the next day, um, it gets them more involved with what's going on. It gets them looking forward to. I mentioned my daughter, to help her learn holidays and what holidays are coming up. We changed the landscape lighting outside to match that holiday. We have it red, white, and blue now because the Olympics are going on. So we have, actually it's not red, white, and blue. They have Hugh has some kind of Paris Eiffel Tower scene outside, and the lights are flickering and they're shining to match the what's going on in the in Paris right now. Um, so really cool stuff like that. Get them involved, get them to know what holidays are coming up next, and it'll help them be more prepared for school and stuff. So,
Yeah.
Greg, what do you think about
Well,
the kids using a calendar?
I just sent my wife a text because so we're getting ready to start school, and we'll
Mm-hmm.
have two grandkids in two different schools, and
Right.
then one that's going to daycare. And then right now, my daughter's schedule is different all the time. And it's only later on that she'll start working 7 on, 7 off. Right. So then we'll at least get
Right.
some consistency there. But I just sent my wife a text because I saw the school calendar come home.
Okay.
And
Yep.
I'm like, can we just get all of this stuff in a shared calendar? Because
Right.
like I schedule my wife and I go to the temple. We have to make an appointment, right? And so I need to be
Right.
able to go in and look and say, hey, what's going on this day? Can I put our normal time, or do I need to do something different? And if I want to
Right.
surprise my wife with a little weekend getaway or something like that, um, then I want to be able to see all that kind of stuff. And I just don't want to have to check 10 places. So she just responded and said, yeah, they'll create one uh, tomorrow. My daughter's meeting with the daycare that she thinks she's going to use. So we should have an idea there, and we'll get that. So yeah, I
Yeah.
can't strongly
Yeah.
recommend this, especially where it's almost like we're trying to manage 3 households at the moment. We've got my daughter's
Right.
household, my
Right.
household, and then the household that's kind of in between, which is when my wife has the kids. It's just
Yep.
this dynamic.
And then work schedules, your work stuff, your deliverables and stuff at work, your deadlines and all of that, trying to fit all of that in, and then still trying to, like you said, hey, can I drop what I'm doing and make an appointment for the temple that day? And nope, nope, we got doctor's appointments and swim meets and baseball games and all of that, and yeah, shared family calendar is probably my best tip. And you're never too young. You're never too young. If your 2-year old has an iPad and they're looking at Coco Melon videos and all that, get them on the calendar. Get them on the calendar. They can't read it yet, but they'll get used to those notifications popping up. And when they're able to read it and say, hey, what's going on? Oh, my older brother has a football game today. That's what this notification is. Um, so quick note on that. Check your school district's page, because my kids recently, last year, they switched school districts. Some districts are a lot better at it than others. right? And what I mean is you can go on the website and let's say the football team, and this is not, of course, including rainouts and reschedules and stuff like that, but they'll have the football schedule out for the team, and they'll have a file where you can download Apple Calendar, download it to Google Calendar, download, and you just hit download and add that to your to your personal calendar or your school calendar or family calendar instantly, just like that, easy. But then there's some districts, and I won't name whatever district it is, but they are horrible at it. Like there is, and actually it's even harder just to find your child's football team schedule or sports schedule or holiday schedule or days, and if they do, it's just listed out on the site and you have to manually add that in. Now there's tips and tricks around that, especially with not Apple Intelligence, because we don't have that now, but just the way Apple functions with their machine learning and stuff. Now it can pull dates and times and all of that off of pages and off of emails and all of that, and you can quickly add it to your calendar. Double check that to make sure that's correct, because I ran into situations last year trying to import that information and the dates were wrong or the times were wrong, or something like that. So take time, dedicate some time once a week, once a month, or if you don't want to do a whole school year because things change, do it weekly. Take that Sunday night. I'm preparing. The kids are going to bed early anyway. Take that time to set an hour aside or 30 minutes if you're good at it, and get a calendar for that week and add in all of those school events and those holidays and programs and things like that are coming up, and share those out with the rest of the family so everyone's on the same page.
Now, the other thing I would encourage you to look for, because I just did this weekend. So we moved. Obviously, we're in a new church unit, and so one of the things that Apple will allow you to do is to add a subscribe to calendar. So I was
Yes.
able to go in, sign into my church account, and under the calendar, because they have all of the stuff here. Anyway, I was able to get a URL. And then
Yes.
you just go
Yes.
back and you click on add calendar and say subscribe calendar. You put in the URL, you name it what you want to name it, you tell it what color of text and stuff it should be, and then it'll add it there. And Jason always is surprised when I remind him that I use Fantastical. As soon as I load it into the calendar app, it's in Fantastical too. Now, in the case of this subscription one, it took a couple hours before it started showing everything, but now I've got
Okay.
all of the church stuff. And the great thing is, if they go change anything, I'll automatically get the updates. Now, it's a read only. I can't add things to it, which is fine. But at least now
Right.
I can see all the different things that are planned. And if they change stuff, you can turn on the notifications. You can turn off the notifications. So see if these organizations you belong to have something like that. And if they
hmm
do, just add it as a subscribed calendar and you're good to go.
Yeah, yeah, good tip. I forgot about that. But yeah, being able to subscribe to calendars too is another thing that'll make this whole process easier. Is to, they have it set. Also, when you subscribe to it, if they do any changes, reschedules, cancellations, stuff like that,
Right.
you'll get those updates automatically versus you going in and manually adding it to your calendar. So, and Greg, too, you brought up another good point. I'm saying how great the Apple Calendar is. That's because it's great for me and my family and my business. But if you have to use something like Fantastical or a third party calendar, find one that works great for you, right? Everything's color coordinated. Everything is the different calendars have their own color to it. So that way I can look at it and automatically know if it's family, personal for my devices. If it's work related, it's purple, of course, because the company colors are purple. So all of that stands out. If that doesn't work for you, you need a different way to manage it, and look into Fantastical or one of these other third party calendar apps. But yeah, family calendars, shared calendars is a great back to school, not just back to school, just a great life management, family management tool that I think everyone should be.
Yeah.
So,
I mean,
oh,
I
go ahead,
just,
Greg.
most of our calendars are Google calendars. So, because we're all on Gmail, but I just looked and I
Right.
have a joint stuff calendar here that's shared with my wife. And I'm thinking, you know what? Well, maybe let me just add, um, I'll add my daughter to it and see if we can use that. So,
Yeah.
but anyway, yeah, do something like that. Gmail will allow you to share your calendar with another Gmail user. Not a big deal. So
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know if people are gonna listen. Like, it sounds weird. Like, why would an elementary school child need access to a calendar? It find them something fun to add to the calendar, and it gets them into being more focused on, like I said, time management and stuff like that. Even if it's just holidays and birthdays to start off, school events, crazy sock day, crazy hat day, the recital is on this day, you know what I mean? Stuff like that. Have them add that stuff in and get their own reminders of what's going on in their school. Yeah, it'll spread to other things in their life. Just watch. All right, folks. Well, that's the show for today. That's all I had. Good back to school episode. I like these things when we do the holiday shopping episode and the back to school and things like that. It's always fun. Just kind of a change of pace. No post show today. Greg, you want to talk about what's going on next week, or do we have anything
I
for next week?
I have no idea. So we'll be starting
Yeah,
to get close to Apple event stuff. So we might need to start talking about some
yeah,
of the rumors and stuff. But I'll come up with something. So
yeah. And that's a big change too with the show that I like. Right? It's more easygoing. I used to
yep.
stress about making sure that I had
Except for
in
when we
all the
dive
right
deep
amount.
on some of these philosophical things like we did. So
Yeah. No.
but
I like that. I love that too.
that needed to be done. So
Yeah. I think so. And again, like I always say, that's what we're here for. That's what Grandpa and Dad is here for. So that's what we're gonna do on this show. Tech and Grandpa's opinion on life. So thanks for joining us, folks. And um, let me see. I thought I had a good closing, but Greg, I'll let you close us out.
go find good uses for your tech as you start school. Embrace it. Embrace the good parts. Fill your life with enough good stuff for the tech that you don't have room for the bad.
Yep. I like that. See you next week, folks.
Thank you.